Going to talk about the idea of reducing or stopping psychiatric medications after a lengthy period of time, and that it can be scary, especially if there is a risk of dependency symptoms. On Mental Health Radio, Take It From Us today, we discuss a guide to reducing or stopping mental health medications and what discontinuation symptoms might be expected from such meds as antidepressants. While this guide was first published late last year, I've only just accessed it via Take It From Us supporter Gayleen Morris, who says this on Facebook about reducing her own meds. And I quote Gayleen, "I'm on this pathway now of ridding my body of medical concoctions that have assisted me in the past to progressively improve my functioning within whānau and wider circles. I'm finding it okay," she says, "but certainly couldn't, or should I say wouldn't, do it if employed or have others relying on me to be consistent. I've become a functioning, descaling, multiple medicinal user." I'll just repeat that. I've become a functioning, descaling, multiple medicinal user, which to my mind, it's just as well as I went to the doctor to de-escalate my meds taking. Instead of doing what we shake our heads about, and which I've done once before, going it alone without support or even advice. She says, "My daughter calls me stubborn, which I have always stubbornly refused to accept, until I did the cold turkey routine with a tablet only as big as a freckle, 20 milligrams of quetiapine. And by coincidence, it was World Benzodiazepine Day, which has actually reduced down to W-bad. Now, that seems to be quite significant to me, because my experience of benzodiazepines like Valium, diazepam, has always been a bit dubious. So here's Declan to ask me about the guide to reducing or stopping mental health medication, which was published by Maturaki, National Additional Workforce Development, late last year.
Right. Well, what's the purpose behind this guide?
Well, this guide has been written, Declan, for you if you are thinking about or wanting to reduce or stop taking mental health medication.
And who's it aimed at targeting?
Yeah, the purpose of this guide is to give you information that can help you to come off your medication. It does not deal with the decision to reduce or stop taking medication, which ideally should be made in collaboration with your healthcare worker and key support people, and I think they should really say there your GP. Let's just say here it is important to discuss whether you should reduce or stop your medication with your doctor and your pharmacist. They will be able to give you valuable information about the pros and cons, how to reduce or stop safely, and how to reduce discontinuation symptoms. Now, we'll be talking a little bit later in the show about these discontinuation symptoms. Clearly, they are the side effects of reducing your medication. However, it is ultimately your choice, and I think this is very important. This is a message throughout this guide, that it is our personal choice whether or not to reduce or stop our medications, unless, of course, you're on a compulsory treatment order. So a very important message, I think, is that everyone's experience of reducing or stopping medication is different, and care must be taken not to assume one person's experiences and opinions are true for everyone.
I was just going to say there too that I think it's, as you say, it's crucial that you don't go through something with the sudden cold turkey stop, and that you have your physician Sometimes you find your physician will hand you over to mental health services and deal with a psychiatrist because obviously a general practitioner. So I think that what you've just mentioned, a very important message is don't do anything without consulting your professionalists and go with their guidance.
Yeah, well, I was prescribed actually Xanax, which I think is the Hollywood sort of benzodiazepine, anxiety reducer. That was in Bali when I had a bit of a meltdown when I travelled up to Bali. And it's, I think, blacklisted in New Zealand, Xanax, and I may have mentioned this on Take It From Us before. But I had about 1.5 tablets left. I wasn't feeling too good when I decided to come off it cold turkey. I had to leave work because I was feeling so uncomfortable, and I dropped in to see my pharmacist, and he said, well, there's no way that you can stop this cold turkey. He said, I cannot help you. How many pills have you got left? And I said, I've got 1.5, and he said, I want you to break up that one into 2 halves. Take a half right now, a half a bit later in the day before you go to bed, and then break up the half. So at least I had some tapering off, and thankfully that worked reasonably well.
And that was while you were in Bali?
No, I had returned.
What do you think what does the summary of the main points explain?
Yeah, well, there is a summary of main points, and it says getting discontinuation or withdrawal symptoms when you reduce or stop taking a medication, it does not mean that you are addicted. And I think perhaps there is a perception that some of the medications that some of us take are addictive, because I certainly feel that it's quite difficult to completely withdraw from some of these drugs. It also says it's very good idea to plan ahead and make sure you have no important obligations for a few weeks after you stop. As Gayleen Morris said earlier when we quoted Gayleen, that not to go cold turkey, and she cast doubt over whether she would be able to handle withdrawing from her medication if she was working, or if she or others were relying on her to be consistent. Use your support people. They are absolutely essential, along with your doctor and other health workers. Make use of them, says this guide, and gradually reduce or taper your medication over a few weeks to reduce the risk of significant symptoms.
When you're looking at the medication discontinue symptoms, how does that tie in with when you stop a medication, what can sometimes happen?
Yeah, well, I think this is where the it's the grey area. When you start withdrawing and reducing the medication, you're likely to get a recurrence of the symptoms of your illness. And how do you distinguish between the symptoms of the original illness and the symptoms or the side effects you're getting from withdrawing from the medication? These symptoms are known, they've got a fairly big name. They're known as medication discontinuation symptoms, MDS. I think probably withdrawal is a better word. It says that most medications, if taken for long enough, can result in these withdrawal symptoms. However, the symptoms are often mild and go unnoticed. But this is where this guide is a little bit inconsistent, because later on we'll talk about some of those side effects from withdrawing. And for some medications, it can lead to seizures, which I would say are not mild side effects.
Forget about Bali.
that would go unnoticed. It says here that research has identified that there are genetic differences in the ways different people process medication, with some people metabolizing medication quickly and some people metabolizing medication slowly. So sometimes when a medication is stopped, there is a worsening of the symptoms it was meant to be helping. So that is, I think, a very strong message as to why we've got to be careful with this whole idea of either reducing or stopping our medication.
So when we, if we were to decide that we were going to stop some or all of medications, what tips would you say people need to be aware of? Obviously, consulting with your medical professional is paramount before you sort of go running off into the woods on your own. But what tips is Galen mentioning on there for reducing and stopping medications?
Well, I'll just clarify here that Galen was the one who bought this guide to stopping or reducing your medication. She was the one who brought it to my notice. The tips that the guide, which has been prepared by Matthew Iraki, says you need to be very clear about your reasons for stopping or reducing medication and the goals that you have set up for yourself. Maybe write these down. It can be very useful to review these if or when you have these withdrawal symptoms. So if the withdrawal symptoms get pretty bad, it's very important to have a supply of the medication that you've been taking and consult your doctor as to whether you should go back on it. Some of the other tips are definitely, this is very important. Choose, learn, or update your coping strategies, and we'll talk more about those. But some of them that are listed is mindfulness and meditation, going for walks, eating well. All of those clear coping strategies that are going to help relieve the impact of these withdrawal symptoms. Discuss how to go about it with your main health worker, and I'm surprised that they don't say quite clearly there that the main health worker in this case should be your GP. Make a plan for how you will go about reducing and then stopping your medication if you want to. Prepare to be flexible with the plan and review how you are doing and what you need as you reduce the medication.
Anybody's supposed to respect you.